I'm a big fan of a lemon meringue that makes you tang right here at the back of your, so it feels sweet and sour at the same time. So hopefully we can do that. Caitlin, do you want to talk about some ground rules and some guidelines for the evening?
I sure will. All right, we all know that you are a Zoom expert these days. We have been on Zoom now for over a year, but we just want to set some housekeeping tips. So please keep yourself on mute during the presentation. We have CFI staff going through our tasty menu tonight. There will be time for questions and discussion at the end. Feel free, if you have a burning question that you just don't want to hold on to, feel free to use that chat function and chat it. We have our very talented comms team monitoring the chat, and they can either answer your question or we can address it during question and answers. During the question and answer time, please feel free to virtually raise your hand and we'll call on you, or just unmute yourself and ask a question. We'll see how many people actually rush and unmute themselves to chat with us. And then lastly, as always at Pies and Charts, we really want you to enjoy your pie. All right, Carol, do you want to go through our menu and
I do.
And a quick introduction of tonight? Great.
First of all, I have to acknowledge the incredible CFI team, right? I mean, first of all, Caitlin Schneider, our outreach director, can come up with more puns for pies than any human being in the world. So let's hear it for Caitlin for coming up with more pie puns than we can any possibly imagine. And try to do, I want as many of those R's as we can hear, because some of these puns are really bad. So please feel free to engage in them. I also want to introduce Elliot Goldbaum. Elliot is the Director of Strategic Communications for CFI. So all the cool stuff that you read and you get from us that is on our website, etc. He's right there behind it, and we couldn't do what we do without him. I'm going to take everybody. We're going to go in alphabetical order after that. Pega Jalali. Pega, will you wave your hand? Pega is our environmental policy analyst. She's really helping us develop our portfolio and helping us pursue an equity agenda around economic or environmental issues. So we're thrilled to have Pega with us. Caroline, where are you? Will you give us a wave? Caroline Nutter. Caroline is our tax policy analyst. She's up to her eye teeth these days in figuring out the tax code in Colorado, doing a fabulous job for us. So we're thrilled to have Caroline with us. Natalie Sabah. So Natalie is our office manager. I have to tell you something about her. She's made us get our poop in a group. This woman has got organizational structure put in place for us, and it's been she's been an amazing addition to our team. So thanks, Natalie, and reach out to Natalie if you have any questions, because she's probably going to know. Of course, I've already introduced Caitlin, and she's the bad punster. Caitlin is our Director of Outreach. Chris Stifler, many of you have been with us, been doing this for a long time. Chris is our economist. Give us a wave, Chris. Chris is in Montana, but that's okay. We still love him. And like I said, he is our he is our economist. Next is just an absolutely, invaluable member of our team, Esther Tercios. Esther is our legislative and policy manager. How'd I do? Did I get it right? Oh, good. I'm really bad with titles, so I wanted to make sure I got Esther's right. Esther is really a chief component of a lot of our research, but is also coordinating all of our work at the Capitol building this year, which is no small task. You'll be hearing a little bit more from her and Chris in a little bit later. Louise Vasquez. Louise is our communications associate or professional or rock star, whatever we want to call her. Like I said, I'm bad with titles. She's part of our strategic communications team. She does a lot. She does most of our social media work and all that great content that you're seeing on when you follow us on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. we can thank Louise for that. So thanks for being a part of the team. Somebody who's not with us today because she is that kind of a gal, she's always out trying to learn and expand and grow, is Kathy White, who is our Deputy Director. Oh, she is here. I didn't see her. Kathy, give us a wave. I'm so glad you're here. She's going to be jumping off in a little bit to take a class tonight. So of course, Kathy's been is CFI, and she's sort of the filling of the CFI pie, and I'm kind of the crust. And so, as the crusty one, the other thing I want to add to that is that many of you may have seen the announcement that I will be stepping away from my position as the executive director of the Colorado Fiscal Institute at the end of the year. We'll talk a lot more about that at Bars and Graphs and other events as the years go on, but I want you to know that the organization is in great hands. Our board and staff is really committed to making sure that CFI is stronger and better and more vibrant after the first of the year. And so I'm really excited about all the opportunities. And quite frankly, I'd be lying if I didn't say I'm also darned excited about retiring. So with that, let's talk about what's going to happen tonight. Lori Harvey is my inspiration on retirement. Lori Harvey and Bob Polstra are like my go-tos for how to retire well. So just thank you so much for being role models. Chris is going to talk a little bit about the March revenue estimates because they're significant and important, and that's really why we have this event at the time of the year that we do. I'm going to step in and talk a little bit about the American Rescue Plan. Kind of significant thing that's been happening in the economic situation. It's going to make a huge difference for us here in Colorado and the rest of the country. Esther's going to pick it up then with some legislative updates, the mischief we're trying to pursue at the Capitol building. And then Caitlin's going to wind us up with some opportunities, some reports that we've done, some opportunities for you to get engaged with us, etc. And without further ado, let's jump in. And I think I turn it over to Chris.
Yep.
Actually, I'm going to jump in first because we have a really important announcement. We have been missing you all and missing eating pie with you. So tonight, we know that, it's going to take a little bit before we can actually sit down and have pie together. But in the meantime, we want to give you pie. We want to give you a chance to enjoy some tasty treats. For those of you in the Denver metro area, we are teaming up with the Pie Queen. And she is going to prepare you a special delicious pie. For those of you who might be lucky winners outside of Denver, we will coordinate. So we are doing a pie raffle. We will be giving away 4 pies. Everyone who registered for this event will be entered into this raffle. However, you must be in attendance to win. That means we might have to spin the wheel a couple times. If your name is picked, please unmute yourself and give us a shout like, I love pie, or more pie for me, or my personal favorite, winner, winner, pies for dinner. And if you, again, are one of the lucky winners, I will be contacting you with the next steps of how to redeem your pie. So with that being said, let's do a little practice. Our first pie raffle. Let's go to the wheel. All right, can you all see that wheel? Okay, let's spin it. So we really wanted to make sure it was random. I wish we had some like fun pie themed music, but let's see who our first winner is and see if they're here. Hopefully, Kendall. Are you here, Kendall?
I love pie. Thank you so much.
Woohoo! Excellent. Well, we'll get in touch with you, Kendall. I'll send you an email. Congratulations as our first pie winner. All right, so now, Chris, let's toss it to you.
Yes, that was the first pie. Now I'm going to give you a heavy dose of some charts.
So the next slide, we're gonna go through our 5 takeaways. We always do 5 takeaways from our revenue estimates that come out every 3 months. And this one's particularly important because our legislators will be writing next year's budget based on what they think they're gonna have in revenue from these March estimates. And there are really great news. To articulate in chart form the great news, take a look at the yellow bars. The yellow bars there on the left in the left chart are the estimates from May. Back when we needed special revenue estimates, right when COVID hit, several months of pandemic, they were trying to figure out how to write this year's budget, and they budgeted it to that very low yellow bar. They were thinking revenue was going to fall significantly, almost 12%. They were projecting it to fall, and now it's only going to fall 1.1%. So it's actually very small, really hit to our general fund, considering the massive number of jobs that were lost and the shutdowns back in April, May, and June. Or to think about that even better, we even got more news that was better from the December estimates 3 months earlier. Our current budget year we're in have been revised up by 571 million, even from the December revenue estimates. So a lot better news from these revenue estimates, which means then the budget that they're budgeting for next year, they're writing the long bill for currently, is going to have a lot more revenue than they initially thought. To put that in perspective, if you looked at the May estimates back in May 2020, we were thinking we would have about 10.3 billion to budget for the next year. Now that number is more like 14.9 billion. That is a huge difference in between what we thought we were going to have and what's really coming in. Or to say that in another way, we have 5.29 billion more to budget for this next year than what they budgeted for last year. Now, last year was a very slim budget. We cut a lot of stuff from schools, a lot of funding. We rearranged a lot of things and did a lot of damage. But compared to what that's really skimpy budget we had this year, 5.29 billion is a ton of new money the General Assembly will have to write the long bill with. The next slide and the chart from Leg Council really articulates how targeted and how bad the recession is for a particular group of low-wage workers. Whereas a lot of metrics we've kind of recovered. GDP is almost back to where it was pre-recession. Things like retail sales, personal income growth, some of those big metrics of overall economic growth are back to pre-recession levels. What's not back is the number of low-wage jobs. And they define low-wage jobs as those making less than $27,000 a year. There's actually still 30% less jobs in that sector than there were when the pandemic began. Whereas high income jobs that pay more than 60, there's actually more of those jobs in Colorado today than there were pre-recession. So again, the pain is really targeted of this recession at the low wage sector, particularly the service, leisure, hospitality, restaurant industry and those jobs and the people in those jobs. Our fourth bullet point is how quickly Tabor rebates are going to come back into our budget and how it really articulates the structural deficit between what we want to spend money on in our general fund and what we can't spend the money on because we give that money back in Tabor rebates. So just to give you perspective here, here's our revenue estimate, wonky budget chart, where the bars represent our fiscal year spending. It's all the taxes and fees the state collects. And that referendum C cap is our cap. And when the bar gets too high, when it exceeds the cap, we return all that money in the form of Tabor rebates. Well, the Great Recession, kind of near the yellow part of the chart, it took us 7 years to get back to recovering to the point where we were giving Tabor rebates. This little blip in revenue, we might be giving Tabor rebates next year. Or the next chart, which is credited to the economists at the governor's office, they really articulates what we call the structural deficit. So if you grow our general fund by historic rates, 6%, and that takes into account caseload growth and inflation and paying for the things we care about that make thriving communities, we can't reach that mark because when we recover, all our revenue, a lot of the revenue goes out in Tabor rebates. So instead of the state being able to keep the money it collects during really boom times, we have to return that money. And it makes it hard to kind of backfill the cuts we made last year, because once our economy starts chugging along and speeding up again, we're going to give a lot of our general fund revenue back in the form of Tabor rebates. And I think that the governor's office has done a great job depicting this graphically with this chart and how that grows over time, where we can't keep up with the growth in the things we care about our roads, our schools, our colleges, our Medicaid budgets, our health, human services budget. The final point of our 5 takeaways from the March revenue estimates was just how whoppingly big that the impact was of the federal stimulus. The federal stimulus money that flowed into Colorado tallied 10% of state GDP. 10% of the size of the economy was made up with all those stimulus payments and those unemployment checks and all the direct payments to local and state governments. Nearly $41 billion flowed into Colorado from those big stimulus payments. Our personal income grew at a whopping 13%. That's like super boom time personal income growth from economic indicators. And that mostly has to do with the chart here. Without the stimulus, our personal income would have grown very, not much at all. With the stimulus, it grew by 13%. So we can't understate how big of impact the federal stimulus monies flowing into the hands of consumers and flowing in the hands of state and local governments that really help us to respond and rebound from this recession. And Carol's going to go into detail on more of those details of the latest round of federal stimulus dollars. And then just one more shout out. There's our 5 bullet points, just to kind of shout out to our it's like a quick cliff notes of our 5 takeaways. If you don't want to read the 40-page Ledge Council revenue estimates, just tune into our 5 takeaways that we get up as soon as the revenue estimates come out to get you give us a cliff notes version of what we think is really important.
They're also fun because they have great pictures and something that I don't really know much about, but I think they're called GIFs. And so, so please do tune in for the Forecast 5, which Chris works on, and then our great communications team puts together after every quarterly estimate. So it's my opportunity, according to Caitlin and her bad puns, to do the Federal American Rescue Plan a la mode. And so that's what I'm going to do is I know it's kind of bad, but we're going to then go, I'm going to use that. I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the details. I just want to, before I do that though, I scrolled through our participant list and I realized that I missed somebody really critically important to CFI, and that is one of our founding board members, Jack Blumenthal. Jack is on the call tonight. Jack, will you give us a wave so we can see you? Thank you so much for doing all that you do for us and helping us with move forward and keeping CFI strong for the future. So I want to talk just a little bit about the American Rescue Plan. The total package, and you all are readers, you pay a lot of attention to this stuff. So you know that it's actually a $1.9 trillion stimulus package. That's the total number of dollars that are going to be moving through the economy because of the most recent decisions by Congress and the executive branch. For Colorado, that looks like current estimates, just based on formulas, et cetera, it looks like Colorado is going to be getting about $27 billion of money that will, through a variety of ways, will be moving through our economy. Chris mentioned the importance of this, how this is what's keeping the economy moving, keeping families intact, keeping communities going. It's a significant injection of economic activity, and it's an essential injection of economic activity. So I'm going to break it down a little bit. Most of these numbers are coming from a helpful document that the Office of State Planning and Budgeting, which is the executive branch budget office, put together. So most of you have heard, and maybe some of you are actually receiving direct cash payments of $1,400 for individuals who are earning up to 75 singly, up to $80,000 a year. If you're a joint tax filer, you will be getting this payment if you're making up to $150,000 a year, phasing out at $160,000 for joint filers. The total injection of revenue from those direct stimulus payments will be $6.7 billion. That is a lot of money for us to be spending on Main Street, to be investing in important activities and being a part of what really, we all know, really makes our economy work. And that is the billions of individual economic transactions that occur every day. This is essential to keeping the economy vibrant and moving forward. So that's the first big part of this package. The second big part of the package is a whole variety of continuations and enhancements for the unemployment insurance program. A little bit later in the presentation, Caitlin's going to be pointing you to the report that we just issued about that provides a lot of detail. There's a ton of detail about how this is working in that report. I condensed it all down into a little slide because otherwise Caitlin would, get mad at me. And so it's the UI payments are going to be about worth about $2.6 billion of additional revenue into the state. That includes the extended unemployment insurance program, the PUA, and the PEAC. And if you want to know what those acronyms mean, you either have to A, ask Kathy White, or B, read the report that will be referenced a little bit later in the evening. One of the other big components of the rescue package is kind of near and dear to our hearts. It's the use of the tax code to provide relief to folks who need it most. And that's expansions of the child tax credit, the earned income tax credit, and the child independent care tax credit. Again, the details of how this works and who's gonna, how much you might be eligible for, or what individual families will be eligible for, is detailed in the report. But these are really significant investments. The thing that I think that brought a little tear to a lot of our eyes when we were learning about this is the expansion of the child tax credit is projected to reduce child poverty in 2021 by up to 50%, somewhere between 40 and 50% of families that were living in poverty, or they had kids living in poverty, will be lifted out of poverty because of these tax credits. I also have to say that for those of us who work in the tax policy space, we have to give a special shout out to Senator Michael Bennet, who has been an advocate for expansion of the child tax credit for an awfully long time. And he was just doggedly persistent to make sure that these investments were made as part of the Rescue Act. And is, from what we know, is working hard to make them permanent. So we're really lucky to be represented by Michael Bennet, who squarely understands the value of using the tax code to address the inequities in our economic system. Caitlin, can I have the next? Oh, there. Can I have the next one? A little over $1 billion is coming into Colorado for small business assistance programs. Again, see more details in the report. But they're coming in the form of forgivable loans, hiring and retention tax credits, paid in family medical leave payments, as well as some direct assistance. These are targeted to, there's some particular provisions for restaurants, and back to the point that Chris made about that this is such an uneven recession that there are certain parts of the economy that are really struggling, and much of the small business assistance is designed specifically to address the needs of those folks who've been most affected by the downturn. The other big area, and I've been trying to get some estimates about what this is going to look like. The best I've been able to come up with relying on the expertise of friends, family, etc., is about a $200 million enhancement for increases in subsidies for individuals who are purchasing health insurance through the premium. There's been some incredible enhancements to make it much more affordable for folks. It's going to be, I think the numbers are about 6,300 Coloradans that will be eligible to receive additional tax credits, or for the first time to be eligible for tax credits to help offset the cost of providing private health insurance. So another really great development and investment that comes from the American Rescue Plan. then there's a whole series of investments or a whole set of investments in actual government activity. Unlike the CARES Act, the money that's coming to the state for state relief can in fact be used to offset budget cuts. Seems like that one makes sense now, doesn't it? And it's about a little over almost $3.2 billion that's coming to the state to invest in to help offset the impacts in our budget and to pay for activities that are related to COVID, whether they're healthcare, et cetera. Much more flexibility this time around. There's also enhanced aid for available to localities, cities, counties, and tribes. That's worth about almost $2.3 billion. There's a whole variety of assistance programs for housing. There's rental assistance, there's some mortgage assistance, and there's some money specifically for reducing homelessness. That amounts to about $84 million for Colorado. Education also will receive some additional resources, about $1.2 billion targeted to K12 education and about $500 million to higher ed. There, in addition to the premiums that I talked about that were available to individuals, there's a healthcare investments of about $120 million, which includes a bump in the Medicaid reimbursement rate, money for testing, for vaccine administration, and to support community health centers. The one thing that I want to additionally mention here, and it will link back into a conversation for many of you, because you're all such smarty pantses, it may link back into a conversation that Esther is going to engage in, and that is about some of our legislative priorities. There's a provision in the American Rescue Plan that restricts states' ability to just simply cut taxes and use the money from the federal government to offset those tax cuts. What it says is that that state governments or governments that lower taxes without finding a pay for them, they call it net tax increases, will have to return an equivalent amount to the federal government out of this American Rescue Plan money that comes to the state. And please know that we're thinking carefully about that as we design some tax measures that we're going to be pursuing in the legislative session. So that's what I got. Caitlin?
Thank you, Carol. All right, y'all. We see a slice of pie. That means it's pie raffle time. All right, let's see. Let's get this raffle started. All right, there's still 115 names and only 68 participants. So let's see if we can get on the first spin again. Melanie, are you here? Shout it out, Melanie. I don't think she's here, actually. I haven't seen her. All right, Melanie, you're being removed. Let's try again.
Mr. Pie.
Missed that pie. All right, cross your fingers. Donna? Is Donna Murphy here? Well, of course, we got it first on the first spin, and it's going to take a little bit. All right, Donna, goodbye. You're not here. No pie for you. Okay, let's see next. Sandra, looks like. Is Sandra here?
What? Yes.
Yes!
Sandra, congratulations. You are the big pie winner.
Oh, thank you. My birthday is tomorrow.
Perfect. Well, I'll be sure to reach out to you and get you the information of how to claim your pie. All right.
Thank you. Thank you.
Awesome, you guys. So that's 2 out of 4 of our pie raffle. Now let's go back to our, oh, did I reshare? Can you see that? PowerPoint? All right. Now I'm going to hand it over to Esther.
Thanks, Kate. Well, we put on our tax aprons and we are baking up something good this session. How's that one, huh?
Oh,
Yeah, okay.
I love it.
Awesome. So here we are in the 2021 session. It has been one like no other, right, to say the least. But as you said, CFI is continuing our mission of advocating for tax policies that we know promote widespread economic prosperity. And we're doing that, next slide, please, Kate. We're doing that through two main priorities this year that really focus on uplifting working Colorado individuals and families who we know are the ones who power our economy and who have been hardest hit, as Chris shared earlier, by this pandemic and this economic downfall. And one of our main efforts this year is to support our communities by continuing the fight to make our tax code fair. So CFI, along with several partners, some folks are here tonight, so shout out to the Bell and others, our legislative champions and the governor's office. We've been working on a pair of bills that look to clean up our state tax code. So one of those bills would close tax expenditures that are ineffective. And just to make sure we're all on the same page, a tax expenditure is any exception to the general tax rules that reduce how much revenue come into the state. And that is based on a series of independent reports from the state auditor's office. They produce these reports that we know by those that there are several tax expenditures in the state that have been identified as being ineffective or wasteful, or which provide a really large benefit only to a few Coloradans, mostly the wealthiest in our state. So by closing these tax loopholes, we can expand the state earned income tax credit, or the ATC, you might know it by its acronyms, by doubling its value to 20% of the federal credit. It's currently 10% at the state level. And finally, funding our state child tax credit, which we've had on the books since 2013, but have never been able to fund, and which would go to working families with kiddos under the age of 6. And these two tax credits, if you know of CFI and you've been following us for a while, we are big advocates of these two tax credits. We know from years and years of research that they're two of the most powerful tax tools that we have that are proven to pull families out of poverty. They put money back into the pockets of working families. And like I said, plenty of research shows that families use these dollars to help make ends meet. They also spend it in their local communities, helping to spur local economic growth, which we know we need at the moment. So with so many Coloradans, losing their jobs and struggling to make ends meet in the midst of this pandemic, we know that there are much more efficient ways of using our tax code so that it works for all Coloradans and not just the wealthy few. And not only that, but by closing these tax expenditures, we can also generate revenue to provide relief to our small businesses, who we know are also really struggling to stay afloat during these times. So our goal really with this tax package is to put Coloradans over corporations. We know that there are much more efficient ways of using our tax code to make it fair so that it works for Coloradans and not just the wealthy few. So we're looking forward to that. We don't have bills just yet, bill drafts just yet, but we will share more information once we do. And I know Caitlin will share a bit afterwards about how to get involved, or please ask in the chat about ways to get involved in that effort. And then our other effort this year also seeks to provide relief to our immigrant communities, particularly our undocumented Coloradans, who have been largely left out of most federal COVID relief efforts. And I hope Kathy White is still on the call. She's really the one leading this effort. Our research finds, we put out a report earlier last year, it finds that over the past 10 years, undocumented immigrants have contributed $188 million into unemployment insurance premiums in the state, even though they're excluded from collecting those benefits. And so this bill seeks to create the Left Behind Workers Fund in Colorado inside the Department of Labor and Employment to provide assistance to workers who lose their job through no fault of their own. And they would be eligible for state unemployment insurance, but for their immigration status. So these workers would be eligible for smaller UI benefits, as you can see here, up to 55% of their weekly wages for a maximum of 13 weeks. Employers wouldn't see an increase in their UI premiums, and they will benefit from unemployed workers in their community having these dollars and putting that money back into the local economy. This fund would be administered by a third-party administrator that would contract with CDLE to ensure a community-centered method of screening for eligibility, employer-employee privacy, and a host of other things. So we were working with longtime partners on this, specifically Colorado People's Alliance, or COPA, and we're hoping to have a bill introduced soon. And with that, I will hand it back to Kate. So just, you know, a sweet treat of letting you know a little bit about what we're working on this session, in addition to, you know, the several bills that we are supporting, partner bills that we are supporting this year.
Cool. Thanks, Esther. Well, you know what that means. It's time for another pie raffle. All right, folks, get ready. Cross your fingers. We're spinning. Here we go. The third pie of the evening goes to Beverly. Beverly, are you here with us tonight? I don't know if I saw your name.
Hi, I'm here.
Yay, Bev! Excellent. Congratulations. You are our third pie winner.
Yay! That's exciting. I never won anything. Woo!
Well, I'm glad that tonight can be your lucky night.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Of course. All right. Now with that raffle, I wanted to talk about some sweet treats from CFI. Really some, oh, sorry, I think something popped up. Some reports, blogs, papers that you can really sink your teeth into. Oh, did it again. Okay, well, with that being said, I wanted to call out and highlight our State of Change series. So this is a series that we're really excited to have launched in January of 2021. We started this project in 2019, hoping to release it during the summer of 2020. And I think we all know what happened there. Still living through this pandemic, and it kind of put us all back as we had to stop and scramble and think and move forward. So we spent the better part of that 2019 year with this project thinking to ourselves, what can the last 50 years of tax, fiscal, and economic data tell us about how we got to where we are today? So at that time, our economy was strong, but was there more to the story? And in what ways did our state, the people, and the economy change over the decades? And so we spent a good year collecting data on all different topics. And now we are really excited to launch the State of Change series, where it is a published bi-weekly series. We just currently released chapter 4 of this series on our website. And we really hope that you all take a look and have been reading them. We've been sending them in our newsletter, and they live on our website. So we think it's really interesting data of just kind of answering this question, what has happened in the past 50 years and how can that information help us move forward? So please, everyone, take a look at State of Change. All right, as Carol alluded to and Elliot put in the chat, you are our first, we're releasing our analysis of the American Rescue Plan, a lifeline to recovery. You will receive this link in the follow-up email, along with all of the links I'm talking about tonight, as well as these slides. And so take a look and dive deep into the research and data and analysis that CFI has done around the American Rescue Plan. I got that name right. I've been getting it wrong all week long. The next item I really want to call out is, one of the papers, but just in general, our partners, our national partners called the Groundwork Collaborative. So this is a national partner that's doing some amazing work on advancing this economic worldview that is easy to understand and promotes economic policies that support people and build power. We were really lucky enough to host them early in February for our partners and other advocates for a webinar to help them start a conversation here in Colorado about how do we reshape this narrative that we have around the economy, and really looking to unlearn some of these outdated ideas about the economy and how it works, like trickle-down economics or centering big corporations or even the stock market, and what really creates the economy, what really makes the economy move, and how do we create policies and actions that actually center a robust and equitable people-centered economy and recovery. And so we wanted to highlight Groundworks Collaborative. You all will get access to some of their information as well as this paper, Rebuilding the Public Sector for Economic Recovery by Sarah Hinckley, which was part of Groundworks Collaborative. So I encourage you all to take a look at that. And then I wanted to talk a little bit more about some actions of what you can actually do and what CFI has coming up. First, I wanted to call out our Proud to Pay. Proud to Pay, as you know, is our campaign that highlights how important, what our taxes pay for, how important our taxes are to our communities, how we invest in our public investments through taxes, through a tax base, and usually on tax day, we put on a digital campaign on Instagram, on Twitter, on Facebook, really showcasing what our taxes pay for and why we are really proud to pay them, to kind of counteract this idea that taxes are the worst and people don't want to pay them. So this year, tax day is May 17th. We are bringing Proud to Pay back, and we invite you all to join us on social media. We will have some great social toolkits and digital advocacy. Please join us. We will be sending that along in our newsletter, as well as following us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, which I'm sure all of you do. But if you don't, follow us today, share our posts. And then the other piece that I want to highlight is a webinar that we have been hosting for the last 4 months, I think. This idea and showcasing the racist roots of tax policy, as we know that it's really important to know the history of tax policy and where it came from, and how do we actually build a better system that promotes equity. And so we've been, once a month, we've been hosting this Racist Roots of Tax Policy webinar. We have our next webinar on April 16th. It's on our website. We post it on our social channels. Encourage you, if you haven't heard this webinar yet, join us. It's really interesting. We've been getting some great feedback. And so we had some really great research to showcase, a large part to do with our national partners at the Center on Budget and Policy Priorities. All right, with that, it is time. I'm going to stop talking. I am going to open it up for questions and just make an announcement that our last pie raffle will be held at 6:30. So if you're not here, you don't get it. Remember that. All right, let's open it up. Elliot and Louise, I'm going to turn it over to you. If there's any questions in the chat, or folks, please feel free, unmute yourself, ask those questions.
It does look like there were some questions for sure. Let's see. I think Allison Torvik had a question. It says is that it was asking if what Chris was talking about was more of a reflection of the general fund budget, since most agencies are cash funded now. And Allison, feel free to ask that.
Yeah, it was sort of at the time thing. So Chris was saying how the general fund budget has bounced back pretty efficiently, and everything has, the world is brighter and rosier. And I've worked for the state for a long time, and it seems like a lot of the things are becoming more like a la carte because of Tabor, and more agencies are cash funded. I currently work for Department of Regulatory Agencies for the Public Utilities Commission, but I know Department of Revenue is cash funded. I mean, there's just a lot of cash funded agencies, and it seems like the only general fund money is going to, I don't know, potholes. I don't even know if it's only going to potholes anymore. So does this general fund bounce mean good things for all of the other agencies that do wonderful things for the state, or is it only the general funded agencies? Chris is in Montana and so hung up a long time ago because he knew he wasn't getting a reply.
Allison, you highlight a great point is both cash funds and taxes go toward that table revenue limit. It's mostly the taxes that are responding that are really driving the general fund. Some of the fees are still down, casino revenue is still down. People still aren't traveling. Severance tax is another one of those big cash fund fees that's still down as far as not general fund revenue taxes. You are correct in pointing out that because we have a limited amount of general fund, and legislators allowed them to raise fees, we do a lot more fees than overall general taxes and then spread it out among the general fund. I think a big general fund budget like that is good for every department that gets revenue, whether it's human services, colleges, highways, Medicaid, schools.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's up to the General Assembly, and our legislators can easily write a bill or change the long bill to drive more revenue to any department that they cared to.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the potted funds still come out of general funds. So state employees raises or the healthcare portion that the state pays. So bigger pie is bigger pie.
Right. Well said.
I think there was a question from Evie about explaining how the money will be distributed in K12 education from the American Rescue Plan. Like, how can it be used?
Are you muted, Carol?
I think you're muted, Carol.
I think
It's
she's
only been
retired.
Can you repeat that question? I wasn't paying attention. I have to confess.
Yeah, it was just explaining how the money from the American Rescue Plan for K-12 education is distributed and can be used.
I am going to, Chris, I think you're the guy. You were getting ready to answer it and I jumped in. Sorry about that. See, that's what happens when you don't pay attention. I'm not the expert on how that's allocated. So I'll just turn myself back on mute.
I was punting it to Evie. I got to talk to Tracy about that actually later this week or early next week. I can get back to you on that, but I can't quite answer that.
Yeah, I think Michael Neal had a similar question on how that K-12 money could help backfill some of the cuts from last budget.
I did, Chris. I was going to pile yet further things you probably don't have full answers for on how far do we backfill given how much we cut last year?
In school-wise?
School-wise.
Yeah, so if you follow the school finance formula, it's the negative factor, basically the whole we're not funding to Amendment 23 levels. And we had slowly been eating that deficit down to about 575 million. I just looked at negative factor data yesterday and it's back up to above $1 billion. Or to articulate that, we cut more than 500 million again from our K-12 education, from our school finance formula in the K-12 world, this current budget year we're living in. So to get us back even to where we were last year, we need to add an extra 500 million on top of what we spent this year. And then in addition to the extra caseload, inflation, and per pupil growth, we probably need to add, another 700 million to what we're spending this year to even get us back to par.
And we're getting how much of that 700 million back through the ARP?
It's just a little over $1 billion. It's about $1.12 billion for education funding.
For Colorado alone, Carol?
Yes.
Well, that's a pleasant surprise. Thank you.
Well, and if I can just jump in here, Louise and Elliot, I wanted to, the reason I wasn't paying attention, it wasn't like I was doing something else on my phone, but our great friend Jennifer Miles, who is on the, Jennifer, give us a wave, had sent us, had sent an email saying that we might have underestimated the amount of money that's actually going to be available to community health centers through the ARP. She's saying that, and Jennifer, correct me if I get this incorrect, it looks like total awards here are just over $131 million to go to support our community mental health, our community health centers, with all of the stuff, all the increased demands they've had over the last years. I like I said, we're working as this information is coming out. So Jennifer, do you want to add anything else about those additional funds?
I can just indicate that it seems like it's been underestimated in a few things I've seen so far. And so I'll put in the chat the link that I shared with you, Carol, but it's a link to the exact dollar amount that each of the federally qualified community health centers will be receiving, and it totals $131 million. So yes, they are doing a lot when it's related to COVID testing, COVID vaccines, providing telehealth, doing everything in their communities while trying to stay financially afloat because they saw their visits drop significantly when COVID hit. But I'll put that in the chat.
It's so fabulous to have such great partners. Thank you so much, Jennifer, because we're doing, we're trying to stay up as with as much up-to-date information as we can, but we're going to fall short in a lot of places. So please feel free, and really appreciate the information, Jennifer.
So it looked like Kendall had brought up a good question that was answered in the chat, but I think it would be good to bring to everybody. And it was, can local governments have their own EITC?
So they don't right now, as far as I know. Again, we like to believe we know everything, but sometimes we don't. There was formerly the city of Denver, or I think it was county of Denver, actually had an EITC of its own. And so, Kendall, when you said, is it a preemption problem? I don't think it is, because this will really date me. The only person who has been around doing this as long as I have is back to my retirement role model, Lori Harvey and Kathy White. But there was a few years in the late 90s, I believe, when the city and county of Denver had their own EITC, but they don't now.
Do they not have an income tax then in Denver? Is that why? Was that removed or something?
No, I'm not exactly sure why they don't have an income tax in Denver, but there are, but they were able to use an EITC-like benefit that they were awarding out of Denver specific dollars.
Doesn't look like there were any other questions. If somebody else has something else that they would like to bring, please speak.
Otherwise, we might have to give away another pie here.
Yeah, otherwise,
Hey.
you know what that means. It means time for free pie. Let's do that. Let's do a break. Actually, Allison, I see your hand raised.
I'm sorry. It's a real quick 2-second question. I was listening to Pod Save America earlier today, and they were talking about a federal baby bond and how great that would be. I'm like, I remember them talking about that a couple of years ago, and Colorado having that. I presume it didn't pass.
It actually did. It was a sort of our version of a baby bond, not exactly, but it was sort of like a baby bond, and it did in fact pass. But as so much happens with Colorado tax policy as a result of the Tabor Amendment, the legislature was reluctant to actually allocate general fund money toward that effort. And the folks at the College Invest said that they would raise the money to actually run that program themselves. And as of yet, they have not raised that money. And so that program is not yet up and running. But you were right, Allison. We were talking about it a couple, 3 years ago at probably at this very event.
Right.
It was a program whereby we would be providing all babies born in Colorado with setting up a 529 plan for them. As I said, it was once again fiscal pressure that kept it from having a general fund appropriation. And for those of you who invest in College Invest, you might want to write them a little text and ask them where is that program that's that they committed to financing, because that was the compromise that was made during the legislative session.
I just want to point out that Colorado is yet again a trailblazer that everybody wants to be like. So good job. Okay, let's eat some pie.
Yeah, let's do some pie. I think, you know, we can be a trailblazer by always giving away pies at our events. I think that would be helpful. All right, last spin of the evening for the fourth pie. Let's see who gets it. David, are you here?
I saw him earlier.
I did see him. I wonder if he jumped off early. I'm trying to scroll through. All right, let's spin again. Or last chance.
Poor David, because I saw him signed in earlier.
I sure did too. Sorry, David. All right, next spin. Fingers crossed. Who gets the pie? Jim Dale, are you here? I've been trying to clean up this list.
Yeah.
All right, congratulations.
Thank you, Caitlin. Thank you.
Of course. Pie. Awesome. Well, that's it. That's our pies and charts for this year, folks. Thanks again. We can't thank you enough for being here with us. As always, reach out if you have any questions. We'll be sending a lot of links and information. I'm recording this webinar. You all will have access to it if you want to listen again to that explanation of the American Relief Plan or the Forecast 5 or ways to engage. So please reach out to you. We love you all. We miss you. We miss pie.
And just remember and pay attention to the next event of the year is always bars and graphs. And Caitlin will be sending you information about how to connect with bars and graphs. We're going to hold it after the session ends, and the session, well, there's a lot of us that are holding our, crossing our fingers that they won't come back after Memorial Day, but I think that is might be a little bit of a pie dream. But just know that we will be hosting our pies and charts, or I'm sorry, bars and graphs, as a celebration for the victories that we're going to get on our legislative priorities this year. Again, thanks everybody for coming.
There was a question in the chat about strategy to make the evils of Tabor more obvious to state voters.
Maud, I tried to answer that question in the chat.
Oh, okay.
If you scroll up, you can see my response.
Okay.
Thank you so much for joining us, everybody.
Okay.
Let them eat pie.
Yay! There we go.
Yes, Lauren.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody.
Take care.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.